Jonathan made his way over to the two Good Samaritans and thanked them. Sydney stood still for a moment. Had her erratic and aggressive driving been the cause of the accident? As she headed toward her SUV, a wave of panic washed over her, and her hand shook as she buckled herself in. What would have happened to her had the Hispanic man actually gotten her out of the vehicle? Would he have hit her with the shovel? She could be dead. Her momentary thought of being responsible for the accident dissolved. She might have driven a bit erratically to prevent the man from cutting in front of her, but by no means was she the reason he'd rear-ended her. Jonathan approached the driver's side window. "Are you sure it's drivable? We should have the highway patrol officer call a tow truck." "Babe, I really don't have time for that. I need to get to the hospital." "The dents on the hood are from his shovel, not the impact, so it should drive okay." One turn of the key, and the engine hummed to life. "See? It sounds great." After a moment of hesitation, Jonathan conceded, and then leaned through the window to kiss her. "I'll see you this evening." Sydney took a deep breath and watched in the rear-view mirror as her husband walked away. After a few false starts, Sydney pulled away from the shoulder into the oncoming traffic. She carefully negotiated the lane switches until she was in the farthest left lane and focused her attention on getting to the hospital. She turned up the volume on the sound system and sang out loud, trying to forget the horror of what had just happened to her. A bright red emergency medical service helicopter was lifting off the landing pad as Sydney entered the doctor's parking lot at Children's Hospital. She killed the ignition and cut short her duet with Mary J. Blige. After she retrieved her gym bag from the back seat, Albert, the security guard, appeared out of nowhere. "Morning, Dr. James." Sydney grabbed her chest. "Albert, you scared the shit out of me," she said before she climbed out of the driver's seat and closed the door behind her. "Sorry about that, Dr. James. Dr. Stevens mentioned you'd had an accident." He stepped forward to examine the damage to the hood of the vehicle. Sydney had worked at the hospital for 3 years and was very familiar with the security staff. When she worked overnight shifts, Albert always made sure she got to her car safely. Sydney glanced at the speckles of dried spit on the driver's side window. "Other than my bruised ego and being late for work, I'm fine," she answered, then rushed through the secured entrance, checking her watch as the elevator doors closed behind her. It had been almost 3 hours since her shift began. She exited the elevator on the 5th floor and never looked up. Her subconscious guided the way to the doctor's lounge. Minutes later, freshly showered and ready to begin her rounds, Sydney strolled down the corridor outlined by the dark blue baseboards and nursery rhyme murals of stars, cows, and moons. She stopped at the nurse's station, but before she retrieved her clipboard, she stretched her arms above her head, twisting from side to side to relieve the tension in her middle back. Her private cell phone vibrated inside her pocket. She looked at the screen, but didn't recognize the number. "Sydney James," she answered. "Sydney, is that you, babe?" The familiar yet unidentifiable voice said anxiously. "This is your neighbor, Barbara Brown, from across the street, and—" "Mrs. Brown, is everything okay?" A clear image of her meddlesome neighbor took shape in her mind. Sydney had been raised to respect her elders, but Mrs. Brown constantly tried her patience. If you looked up nosy in the dictionary, Mrs. Brown's picture would be right there. "Hun, your house alarm went off about an hour ago, so I called the police. They're here now to check it out." Sydney glanced at her watch. "I told the police that you and Jonathan were out of town and wouldn't be returning for a few more days. So Mrs. Brown, we came back from Carmel last night. Jonathan should be at home right now."